Welcome to the Space Podcast series, Stories of Change. This is an AI-narrated podcast series inspired by authentic curriculum redesign cases. In each episode, we explore how educators are rethinking teaching and learning to build stronger connections between universities, students, and society.
Hello, and welcome. Today, we're exploring a curriculum redesign journey within early childhood education that focused on reconnecting research methods, teaching with real community practice. I'll be speaking with one of the redesign case holders about how a quantitative research methodology course moved beyond theoretical exercises and began exploring how student research could directly support kindergartens and early childhood professionals through service learning and community engagement. When people hear quantitative research methodology, they often imagine statistics, formulas, and quite abstract academic work. But your redesign seems to approach research very differently. What first motivated that shift?
Yes, that perception was actually one of the reasons we started rethinking the course. Students were learning research methods theoretically, but increasingly disconnected from the real educational settings they were preparing to work in. At one point, the course had included collaboration with kindergartens, but over time that connection gradually disappeared. We realized something important had been lost.
So the redesign was really about reconnecting research with professional and community realities?
Exactly. We wanted students to experience research not simply as an academic requirement, but as something that could genuinely support educational practice and respond to real questions within early childhood settings. That became the foundation for reintroducing service learning into the course.
And how did that work in practice?
The idea was relatively straightforward, although implementing it was more complex. Community partner organizations, particularly kindergartens, would identify real questions or challenges from their practice. Students would then design and carry out small-scale quantitative research projects, developing instruments, collecting data, analyzing findings, and eventually presenting the results back to the kindergarten itself.
So students weren't only learning how to conduct research, they were learning how research can actually contribute to practice and decision-making.
Yes, precisely. The redesign aimed to strengthen critical thinking, creativity, and students' understanding of evidence-based practice. It also helped students recognize that research has social value when it responds to real community needs, rather than remaining isolated within the university.
And I understand participation in the service learning pathway remained optional.
That's right. Students could choose between the community-engaged pathway and more traditional faculty-based learning activities, while receiving the same academic credit. That flexibility was important because we wanted different learning routes to hold equal academic value.
What kind of value did the redesign create for the community partners themselves?
The kindergartens received research-based insights connected directly to their own educational questions and challenges. At the same time, the collaboration strengthened relationships between the university and early childhood institutions, creating more meaningful exchange between academic and professional environments.
Of course, community-engaged redesigns rarely happen without challenges. What kinds of obstacles emerged during the process?
Quite a few, actually. Institutional changes created uncertainty at different levels, both within the university and within the kindergarten system itself. There were also practical questions around student participation and whether enough students would choose the service learning pathway for it to become sustainable over time.
So there was always a level of uncertainty built into the redesign itself.
Absolutely, and that uncertainty can sometimes feel difficult when you invest a lot of energy into building partnerships and designing new learning experiences. But the co-learning environment within the SPACE project helped enormously because it created space for reflection, discussion, and practical problem-solving with colleagues facing similar challenges.
Were there particular ideas or discussions that helped move the redesign forward?
Yes, definitely. Conversations around involving former students, recognizing student engagement more visibly, and bringing community professionals more actively into university spaces all helped strengthen the direction of the redesign. Those exchanges reminded us that service learning depends on relationships, visibility, and ongoing collaboration.
And finally, looking back now, what do you feel has been the biggest lesson from this redesign journey?
Probably that service learning is much more than a teaching method. It's really about relationships between students, educators, institutions, and communities. And when those relationships are built carefully, research becomes more meaningful, learning becomes more connected to reality, and universities become genuine partners within educational practice.
A thoughtful reminder that research becomes most powerful when it moves beyond academic walls and begins responding directly to the communities and professions it hopes to serve.
This story is based on real experiences from curriculum redesign projects run under the Erasmus Plus Space Project. More information about the cases and the Space Project can be found on the website www.community-engagement.eu.